العلم أشراف مطلوب وطالبه لله أكرام من يمشي على قدمه. العلم نور مبين يستضيء به أهل السعادات والجهال في الظلم.
The second is the conditions, شروط البيع, it is permissible to leave them off. عفوا, شروط البيع, it is not permissible to leave them off. So from the conditions that we shall see now, الرضا, that both parties have to be happy or pleased and have a choice. We can't leave that condition out. We can't say to one of them, like, don't worry about that condition being, even if you're not happy, we're gonna sell your item, sell your phone or your home and so on. So that condition cannot be removed. But the condition that the buyer and the seller, they place, that can be removed. So for example, the example in nikah, the sister can say, you know what, don't worry about that condition. I did place it once upon a time, 5 years ago, but don't worry about that condition. I actually want you to marry now. So it's permissible for them to both leave that condition. Like with the example of, I will sell this car to you, like, allow me to transfer my items. You can say, you know what, actually, I've got someone else to move the items for me. I've got someone else to move my stuff for me. So don't worry about that. You can drop those conditions. The condition of the top one, the conditions of the Sharia that Allah Jalla wa Ala has placed, if they're not met, then the aqd is fasid. If they're not met, then the aqd is not fasid. So for example, if someone sells someone else's item, or if a small child sells his home, a small child, a 10-year-old, goes to the estate agent, says, I've got a house for sale, 300,000, take it. That bay' is fasid. Lakin, the bay' or the condition that one of the two people place, the aqd can still be valid, depending on what the other person, the one that placed the condition, depending on what he says. So for example, the example of that sister, the nikah doesn't always automatically get dissolved. It is not automatically null and void. It is up to her now to see whether she agrees or she will live like that or not. Is that understood? طيب. So the Shaykh says, إذا تمت الشروط فمن أعظم الشروط, and from the biggest of the conditions or the greatest of these conditions is الرضا, which is mutual consent. Both parties, when they're selling this item, they have mutual consent. لقول الله تعالى يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تأكلوا أموالكم بينكم بالباطل إلا أن تكون تجارة عن تراض منكم. O you who believe, do not buy and sell, do not trade, except unless it is out of mutual consent. Allah says, O you who believe, don't eat and take your wealth by way of batil, falsehood and oppression and so on, except in trade that you have mutual consent over. In Surah An-Nisa, verse 29. طيب. So the person that is selling this item, buying and selling, they both must be happy with, or they have mutual consent for selling this item. Lakin this doesn't mean that a person has to be happy with selling. It doesn't mean he has to be happy with selling. It means he has a choice in whether he sells or not. What is the difference? The difference is a person could sell an item that he's not happy with selling. Like a person might be in debt and he may have to sell his car. Now he wants his car, he likes his car, he doesn't want to sell it, like he has to pay this debt off. So he goes and sells his car. Is he happy with it? La. Lakin is he being forced? La, it's out of choice. So the meaning of rida is that a person is not being forced. Except in a situation where the qadi, the hakim, now forces this person to sell some of his belongings. For example, if a person owes a group of people a great, enormous amount of money, 100,000. A person owes a group of people, or even another person, he owes him £100,000. Then that person that is owed the money, he goes to a hakim, he goes to the court, and he says, Fulan owes me 100,000. And he's brought to the mahkamah, to the court, and he says, yes, I acknowledge I owe him 100,000. Lakin I don't have any money, or I won't give it to him. What the hakim can do is sell some of his belongings. For example, if he has an extra mansion, an extra house, an extra car, or extra cars, or his business is depending on the profit and so on, he can sell part of his belongings in order to cover the debt. Will he be pleased with that? Will he be happy with that? Lakin that isn't taken into consideration, because that is legally binding. Legally it's binding for him to sell the item and repay the debt. Questions after here. To repay that debt. So if a hakim forces him, then that item, that bay' or that transaction is correct, although he's being forced. But obviously that is not the norm. طيب. No. وأن لا يكون. So this is the second condition. The first condition was what? وأن لا يكون فيها غرر وجهالة لأن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم نهى عن بيع الغرر رواه مسلم فيدخل فيه. طيب. The Shaykh says وأن لا يكون فيها يعني, and in this transaction that there is no gharar, uncertainty, or jahala, or ignorance. Certainty or jahala. So gharar and jahala. In any one of these transactions that you're doing, there must not be uncertainty or gharar or jahala. Because the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam naha an bay'il gharar, he prohibited from any transaction that has gharar in it. Gharar in it. طيب. What is the difference, or what is the meaning of gharar? The meaning of gharar is ما لا يدرى هل يحصل أم لا يحصل. لا يدرى هل يحصل أم لا يحصل أم يحصل. هل يحصل أم لا يحصل. Will this person be able to get hold of it or not? And the examples that the Shaykh is going to mention will clarify that. For example, فيدخل فيه بيع الآبق والشارد. For example, selling a runaway slave. A person has a slave, and that slave is no longer present. He's run away. The slave has run away. Therefore, selling the abd is called what? Gharar. Why is that? Because you don't know whether you're going to find him or not. طيب. As for jahala, it is ما علم حصوله وجهلت صفته فهو مجهول. It is that which علم حصوله, you know you're going to get hold of it, or you know you can easily get hold of it and have it at hand. طيب. وجهلت صفته, like its attribute, what it contains or what it is, you're ignorant of, you don't know. It is majhul. So that is jahala. And an example of this is if I say, for example, I'm going to sell you whatever is in my pocket. I've got 5 phones that are all different and they are in my bag. I'm going to sell you one of these phones. I know there's no gharar in there. Why? Because I know that these 5 are in the bag, and I know that they're in the bag. Like there's jahala, meaning there's ignorance of the actual item. So I can pick up what? An iPhone. I can pick up a Samsung phone. I can pick up I can even pick up a tab. صح? So I know there are items, devices in there, and I say to you, I'm selling you one of these devices. That is not permissible. Why? Because there is jahala in there. Because there is jahala in there. طيب, is that understood? طيب, that's the second condition. As the Shaykh says, فَيَدْخُلُ فِيهِ بَيْعُ الْآبِقِ وَالشَّارِدِ. And what comes under that is the runaway slave, وَالشَّارِدِ, and the animal that is wandering away. The animal that you don't possess at this particular moment. For example, you've got a camel, like you don't know where that camel is now. Or you're selling your car, like it has been stolen. You're selling your car, like it has been stolen. You're selling a car, like it has been stolen. In that case, it is not permissible to sell because you don't know if you're going to retrieve it or not, right? Like, unless there's an exemption that the fuqaha say, which is unless you're selling it to someone who's able to retrieve it. طيب, مثلا, you know that Ali stole your car. and you know Ali's father. You know Ali's father. You can sell it to Ali's father if he's able to what? Retrieve it from him. Or you know Ali's best friend, you can sell it to him if you know that he's going to be able to retrieve it from him. Like you can't sell it to someone that is random, that he doesn't know, they don't know, that can't retrieve it. Also, you can sell it to the Hakim, they say. Why? Because the Hakim has sulta. He has authority over him, so he can force him to sell it. طيب. طيب. وأن يقول Well, anything that you don't have at that particular moment. Like what is meant is when they mention in the books of fiqh, the animal, the wandering animal. طيب. A lot of the examples that you'll see in the books of the fuqaha are examples that were relative to their time. So for example, one of the scholars that explains Zad al-Mustaqni', he lived near the Nile, the river Nile. So a lot of examples that he would mention are from the river Nile, because he said that he lived on his balcony was on top of the Nile. طيب. وأن يقول, and that he says, نعم. طيب. وأن يقول بعتك إحدى السلعتين أو بمقدار ما تبلغ الحصاة من الأرض أو ونحوه أو ما تحمل أمته أو شجرته. So he mentions a few different examples. Like all of these examples go under the condition of what? نعم غرر and جهالة. So he says أو بعتك إحدى السلعتين. I'm going to sell you one of these two items. Two items that are completely different. So I say to you, مثلا, I'm going to sell you one of these two books. So if I say to you, I'm going to sell one of these two books, is that permissible? Why? طيب, pass me that book. What if I say I'm going to sell you one of these two books? Not permissible, يعني? لا, imagine this is also closed. Why? There is no loss. طيب. There is no loss. If it was closed, I mean. So when you say I'm going to sell you one of these two items, that is if what? If they are different. If they are exactly the same, then it is permissible. So for example, if you go to the cash and carry and there's rice over there, 10 kilos of rice, call it basmati, 10 kilos of basmati rice, and the shopkeeper says, nah, buy one of those, or I'm going to sell you one of those, is that permissible? Nah, because they're both the same. Like in two items that are not the same, it is not permissible to sell. Why? There's jahala. There's a qa'idah that can help you, that will help you inshallah, to understand the ahkam. Al-hukmu يدور مع العلة وجودا وعدما. الحكم يدور مع العلة وجودا وعدما. حكم, the ruling, it goes around with the illah, the reason, the reason that has been legislated, the illah or the wisdom behind it. It is not exactly the wisdom, like in the reason. Wujudan, whether it's present, wa adaman, whether it's not present. So in the example where I said to you, I showed you two books. They were two books that are different, and I said, I'm going to sell you one of these. Is it permissible or not? No. Why? Because the illah is what? The illah is gharar, ambiguity, and jahala. طيب. The illah of why it's haram to do that is gharar, ambiguity, uncertainty. Which book am I going to sell? One book might be 50 riyals or 50 pound. One book might be 30 pound. So you need to know exactly what you're buying. Questions after, yeah? You need to know exactly what you're buying. طيب. So the illah was there. Lakin, when I said to you, two books that were exactly the same, both covered up, you said it is what? Permissible or impermissible to sell? Huh? Permissible. Why? Huh? طيب, لكن talk usuli way. The illah is not there. The illah of being what? Gharar. An example that you can all understand, traveling. If a person is traveling, is it permissible for them to shorten their prayers? صح? It's permissible for them to shorten their prayer. طيب. What about if they're not traveling? So the illah, that thing in the middle that I've highlighted is what? Traveling. So the illah, if it's there, if the illah is met, then the hukum is there.